Tonight, I'm going to talk about risk. So how many of you have heard an expression that goes, the greater the risk, the greater the reward? Please raise your hand. So it's all of us. Now I'm sure that you heard that expression when referring to investments. But what about risk in our personal lives or in our professional lives? Do you think the same motto applies? And what is risk? Well, I read that risk is the potential to lose something of value. Or it can also be defined as the intentional interaction with uncertainty. The intentional interaction with uncertainty. So what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to illustrate this intentional interaction with uncertainty by sharing a personal story with you. It's a story about a time in my life when I had to take a big risk. So let me get into it. 1 week after my 40th birthday, I emigrated from South Africa to Australia. Now I know I don't look a day older than 32. No, I really don't look a day older than 32. But I really am over 40. But anyway, 1 week after my birthday, I emigrated to Australia. Now, immigrating to Australia was a huge risk. Think about it. Starting over at 40 in a new country, plus I had to divide my net worth by 7 because of the poor South African exchange rate. So what I thought, let me get a job in my comfort zone to make it a bit of a softer landing for me. So I did that. I took a job in retail buying. An industry I'd left behind 7 years before and didn't particularly want to go back to either. After only 5 months in the new role, I knew I had to get out. The job was literally killing me inside. Now, on a side note, I've always aspired to be a business consultant to the retail industry. And I really thought I was getting there in my life after spending 7 years in the retail side and then 7 years on the manufacturing side. So out of the blue, after being in this dead-end job for just 5 months, an opportunity came around. Consultant to the retail industry. Except it was in market research, an industry I have no experience in. Nothing. This would be a completely new direction for me. Now, ladies and gentlemen, changing direction is a risk. It's a huge risk, especially at age 40 in a new country. I mean, what if this didn't work? What if I make a dismal failure of the whole thing? I had no network in Australia. I had no reputation in the country, nothing to fall back on. Yet, I knew if I was going to reach my potential, it was going to require me to step outside of my comfort zone and take that risk. Now, you've got to understand that my whole identity had been wrapped up in retail buying and on the manufacturing side of fast-moving consumer goods. So the question that I had to face was I prepared to take the risk of changing industry so that I could find out if I have what it takes to reinvent myself and literally start over? So the way I came to make the decision was this. Changing direction is a risk. It's a massive risk. But what if I don't change? You see, ladies and gentlemen, the day came when, for me, the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. So my question to all of you is, changing direction is a risk. But what if you don't change? Which risk would you rather live with? You see, there comes a time in our lives all of us, where we have to come to a crossroads at some stage. And we have to take a decision that's a risk for us. I mean, think about your own lives. As you look at yourselves and think about your own lives. How many of you can remember a time, maybe it's you, friend, the time when you told us in your story that you were going to get married and you were traveling before you got married to another country, to Australia. So that's an example. How many of you can remember a time in your life when a decision for you was a massive risk? Raise your hand if you have. It's all of us. Now, I don't know what decision you made, but what I do know is that we cannot really grow. We cannot really develop. We cannot really know what our potential is unless we take that risk. You see, Abraham Maslow said, we either step forward into growth or back into safety. So ladies and gentlemen, I started off telling you that risk is the intentional interaction with uncertainty. Now we all know that uncertainty is a very scary thing. And it takes a lot of guts. But here's the good news. It's only when we take that risk that we actually discover our potential. And anyone who has ever achieved success has taken many a risk to get there. So wouldn't you rather die trying than live with regrets?
Thank you very much, Jeanine, for your inspiring speech. I'm sure everyone